Okay, I am Haidar Eid and I am a BDS activist. I am a member of the Palestinian Campaign for the Academic and Cultural Boycott of Israel. I'm also an associate professor of literature and cultural studies at Aqsa University in Gaza.
Thank you. Could you explain us a little bit the details of the call for BDS?
Look, BDS is an abbreviation for Boycott, Divestment and Sanctions, and it was a call made by more than 170 civil society organizations in Palestine, in which they called on the international community to boycott Israel, divest from Israel and from foreign companies that benefit from Israel's system of oppression in Palestine, and impose sanctions against Israel until it complies with international law. Our BDS call, was modeled on the South African call for boycott against the apartheid system. Now, it took the international community more than 30 years to heed the call made by the oppressed South Africans, and in our case we issued our first statement in 2005, and now we are celebrating the 10th anniversary of the BDS call, and we can see a lot of successes. The basis on which the BDS call is issued is that we want Israel to abide by international law. Our call has no political program, and therefore it is a rights-based movement rather than a political movement. In Palestine now you have an overwhelming consensus. Almost every civil society sector and every civil society organization, all political forces from right to left are on board with us on the secretary of the BNC. The BNC is an abbreviation for Boycott National Committee, which represents almost all political and civil society sectors in Palestine. What we are expecting from the international community is that we want the international community itself to abide by international law. That is to say, we expect the international community to stop its support of Israel until Israel itself complies by international law. We know very well that Israel is the biggest recipient of European and American aid in the world, and we know that all weapons that Israel has been using to oppress our people, to commit war crimes and crimes against humanity, like what happened in 2008-2009 Gaza, and which was repeated in 2012, and which was also repeated in 2014, that would have never happened without the direct support that Israel has been getting from the West, in particular the United States of America and Western countries. But the same Western countries that are supporting Israel right now, including the United States of America, also showed support for the apartheid system in the 60s and the 70s until almost mid-80s. In mid-80s, Western leaders from the United Kingdom, people like ex-Prime Minister, the late Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, the late American President Ronald Reagan, actually considered Nelson Mandela a terrorist, and therefore they called for constructive engagement. And that concept of constructive engagement never worked out. The international community refused to deal with the apartheid system as a result of pressure exerted on those governments by their civil society sectors. And therefore, when we issued our statement in 2005, we made it absolutely clear that we have lost faith. We had lost faith in the official bodies of the international community, especially in Western governments. And that's why our call was addressed to international civil society. Okay, that was good for the recording.
We will leave it.
Soundtrack. Yeah. Yes, sorry. Yeah. Didn't they cover everything almost? Yeah.
Maybe if you want, you can explain a little bit more about the
Political solution.
political and
Yeah.
why you think the goals are.
Okay. Well, when we issued our call back in 2005, we made it absolutely clear that it is a rights-based movement, and therefore we have refused since then to endorse a political solution, because I mean the BNC itself, the Boycott National Committee, is the largest coalition that includes, the overwhelming majority of civil society organizations, but also political forces, and every single political force on the ground has its own political agenda, and that's why we made it absolutely clear that we wouldn't actually endorse a political solution. When I say a political solution, I'm talking about one state versus two states. So on the one hand, you have some BDS activists actually who believe that the only political solution is a secular democratic state on the historic land of Palestine. But on the other hand, you have also very active BDS activists who believe that two-state solution can provide a minimum just solution to the problem in Palestine, or to the Palestinian question rather. And therefore we decided to rely heavily on what international law is offering us. And that is why we have 3 demands. And those 3 demands have a consensus. Almost every single Palestinian political organization supports that, and because that is a call for the implementation of international law. When we say a call for implementation of international law, we say we want the implementation of our right to self-determination. Our interpretation of our right to self-determination means, 1, the complete withdrawal of all Israeli occupation forces from Arab lands they occupied in 1967. And when we say Arab lands, we made it absolutely clear then. We said Arab land includes the West Bank, the Gaza Strip, and Eastern Jerusalem. But that's only one demand. The other demand that is guaranteed by international law is we want the implementation of United Nations Resolution 194. United Nations Resolution 194 is very clear about the right of return of Palestinian refugees to the villages and towns from which they were ethnically cleansed in 1948, including myself. Now I'm talking to you, and my parents are refugees who lived and died as refugees in the Gaza Strip, dreaming of the day when they would be allowed to return to the village from which they were ethnically cleansed, with more than 750,000 Palestinian refugees. And then demand number 3, we want an end to Israel's policy of racial discrimination against 1.4 million Palestinian citizens who live as second-class citizens in the state of Israel itself. And therefore, notice that we are saying that these 3 demands are complementary, which means you cannot only call for the withdrawal of Israeli troops from the 1967 borders and you say that would solve the Palestinian problem. In fact, even if Israel decides to withdraw from the Gaza Strip and the West Bank, and even if the international community allows the establishment of an impossible, a fictional, a mirage Palestinian state on parts of the Gaza Strip and the West Bank, even the entire land of the Gaza Strip and the West Bank, that would never mean the end of our call and the end of the BDS movement. Our most important demand is the implementation of United Nations Resolution 194, i.e. return of Palestinian refugees scattered all over the world. I mean, I'm speaking to you right now from Gaza, and about 75 to 80% of Gazans are originally refugees whose right of return is actually guaranteed in international law. But demand number 3 also is extremely important, because it actually makes it absolutely clear that Israel is an apartheid state. I mean, I need to remind you that Israel is one of the very few, if not the only, country in the world that does not have a constitution. Israel has basic laws, and it has about more than 52 basic laws that define it as an apartheid state. So we want an end to apartheid. As for how successful the BDS movement has been, I think, I can refer you to what Israelis themselves are saying. They are saying that the BDS movement has been posing a strategic and an existential threat against the state of Israel. Now you have between 10 to 11 American academic institutions that have decided to endorse our call and cut all their academic ties with Israeli academic institutions. You have major trade unions in the United Kingdom, in Scotland, in Ireland, in South Africa, endorsing our BDS call. I think if I start talking about the successes of the BDS call, it will take us about 24 to 48 hours to finish talking about that. But the most important part that I think we have pride in is that we have managed to move from civil society support to official endorsement of the BDS call. I need to remind you, during the 2014 massacre, President Evo Morales decided to endorse the BDS call. The ex-Cuban president, Comrade Fidel Castro, also decided to endorse the BDS call. As I speak to you right now, we have the news of the European Union deciding to label settlement products. We know that's not enough, but we know very well that we have managed actually to persuade major forces to take BDS seriously. And now, as I speak to you, I guarantee you that we think that within next years, based on reports, reports and research made by major Israeli think tank, major American think tank, and major European think tank, that BDS is actually the future tool of struggle of the entire Palestinian people that will bring an end to Israel's multi-tiered system of oppression that it has been imposing on the Palestinian people. It took the international community 30 years to heed the call made by the oppressed South Africans. We have already achieved, this is our 10th year, by the way, what we have already achieved actually is more, is rather far more than what the